That was very great. You're already getting.
Popularity. What is it made of? How does a person get to be popular with lots of people and have a few close friends, too? Let's watch and see what makes people like one person and not another.
Hey, Jerry, there's that new girl in our math class.
Oh, yes. Her name's Carolyn Ames. She's a swell kid.
Why? You know her?
Not very well. I wish I did.
Hmm.
I don't know what it is, but there's something about her you like.
Well, she always looks nice to start with.
Yeah, especially when you compare her with some of the weird characters in this place.
Yoo-hoo!
Ginny thinks that she has the key to popularity, parking in cars with the boys at night. When Jerry brags about taking Ginny out, he learns that she dates all the boys, and he feels less important. What about Ginny? Does that make her really popular? Do the boys and girls like her? Is she welcome to join this group?
Hi, Betty. Ellie. You can rest your tray here, Ginny, for a minute. Thanks. Say, Wally, how's the play coming along?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, Jenny. Here, Jenny.
No,
Thanks,
girls
Jerry.
who park in cars are not really popular. Not even with the boys they park with. Not when they meet at school or elsewhere.
Nothing like being Miss Popularity.
Yeah.
Meow, meow.
Okay, Ellie. Now there's a girl that'd really get my vote.
Let's go over, huh?
Okay, now go ahead. Why not?
Now, why do they invite Carolyn to join their group when Ginny wasn't welcome? Is it because they like the way she looks and dresses? Because she seems as interested in girls as in boys? Because they've heard no scandal about her?
I guess you know everybody, don't you, Carolyn?
Hi.
Well, I've seen you around. I don't get Richard. Carolyn Ames. Betty's leading our class play. Oh, yes. I looked in on it for yesterday. We're all in on it in one way or another. I'm on the costume committee.
And Jerry and I are stage hands.
Two among a dozen or so.
How about you, Wally? Where do you fit in all this?
Oh, I'm a one-man team that does a job with no glory attached. I gather the props together. Boy, what a headache.
You sound like you need a helper. Could I lend a hand?
Would you? I mean, would you really?
Sure, I'd like it. I don't know anything about props, but I could learn. Well, I need some help too, Carolyn.
Hey, lay off. I saw her first. Say, we ought to get together and talk over those props a little. Could you meet me backstage at 3:15?
Oh, that'd be fine, Wally.
I think maybe I'll take Carolyn to the dance Saturday night. Well, better go ahead and ask her if we can work out a double date. Saturday's soon enough.
Oh.
Hello? Oh, hello, Wally.
I was wondering if you'd like to go to the Strand to see a movie Saturday night, and then go over to Teen Town, maybe.
Well, yes,
Or if you'd rather go with the gang on a skating party and weenie roast. We'd have to leave earlier for that, though. So we get home at a decent time.
Oh, the skating sounds like loads of fun.
Wally has used a lot of common sense in putting the invitation this way. It shows he has thought about what Carolyn might like, and he has implied his price range, so she will have some idea of what he can afford when she makes her choice. Carolyn likes it better this way, too. It's doing the girl no favor to leave it entirely up to her. It puts her on the spot.
All right, Wally. On Saturday at 5 then. Bye.
Well, that phone call didn't go on for hours. A pretty sensible attitude toward telephone conversation. Carolyn keeps a date calendar. Not a bad idea. She'll never have the embarrassment of forgetting a date, or of being ready an hour too late. That's a good note to write yourself. Any night. But especially when you're getting ready for a date.
There, you too can do a manicure, Ellie. I might even know what to wear it with tonight if I only knew Phil dug up transportation to the dance. You sure you knew to phone you here at my house? I told him 3 times. I'll have to be getting home to dinner pretty soon. Take my advice. Think twice before you start going steady. Don't you ever go out with anyone else at all? Nope. Well, don't you ever want to? On nights like this, I do. I never know what he's planned. He just says, "Will you decide, Ellie?" I should think you'd run out of ideas. Well, I'm getting to that point. Hello? Oh, hello, Jerry. Oh, the props are coming along all right.
That's good. Hey, Carolyn, how about a date?
Well, I don't know, Jerry. When did you have in mind?
Well, what are you doing tonight?
I'm awfully sorry, but I have a date for tonight, Jerry. Tomorrow? No, I'm sorry. Well, call me early next week, Jerry.
Okay, Carolyn. Thanks a lot just the same. Goodbye.
Can you imagine that, Ellie? He wanted a date for tonight.
Sounds like you're asking her so late went over like a lead balloon, brother.
Maybe so. Well, let's see what else we can do about tonight.
No, it isn't too promising for Jerry. But after all, it's no compliment to any girl to call her so late she thinks she's a very last resort. And sometimes a girl likes a chance to get ready for a date.
Hello, Wally. Come on in.
Well, yourself. Gee, look at you all ready and right on time, too. That's a good deal.
Thanks. Mother, are you busy? I'd like to meet my father. Dad, this is Wally Johnson.
Well, hello, Wally. How do you do, Mr. Ames?
Here I am, darling. And I suppose this is Wally.
That's right, Mrs. Ames. How do you do?
Well, it's nice meeting you. Oh, excuse me a second. I forgot my scarf. I'll be right back.
Don't let me interrupt your eating, Mr. Ames. Thanks, Wally. I was just looking into the world of events before we go to dinner.
I took it.
Thank you, Marjorie. Thanks for your work, your efforts. There's no better contrast between what happened in the summer of 2020 and what happened January 6th than the issue of bail. We hear from many people that participated in destroying federal buildings, police buildings, looting, then that they had no bail, so they were immediately allowed to be released. And yet, we've got people in the DC jail who had no bail, meaning they can't get out. Now, on the state side, having been a felony judge, you had to have done something incredibly extreme to have bail so high that you could not make it, especially a no bail situation. That's just so extremely rare. But to have that kind of dichotomy here in the nation's capital is pretty outrageous. We know, for those that are still taught any type of civics, of government, you know that under our system, you are innocent until proven guilty. And the law and the Constitution have made very clear you're not to punish anyone who's in pretrial confinement. Pretrial confinement is not a place for punishment. That can only come after conviction. And yet here what we've seen in the DC jail amounts to a great deal of punishment. And to be clear, it's not just the inmates that have suffered. As Marjorie and I toured the DC jail, some of the conditions were so astounding. I asked more than one guard, have you ever worked in a facility that had these kind of problems? And quietly they would say, never. No. It is outrageous. Now, there's some that say, oh, it's just because you've not been in jails or prison, you don't know this is what it's like.
I have no more
those
cheese for
people
you.
that said that have not witnessed what's been going on in the DC
There
jail.
you go. I got no more. Go eat your food.
We have heard repeatedly since January 6th, this was an armed insurrection. And as I asked Mayor Garland, and I've asked others, is there anybody been charged with insurrection? And the answer is actually no. No one has been charged with insurrection. In fact, if they were going to charge with someone with insurrection, it's beginning to sound more and more like those would be agents for the federal government that were there stirring things up, trying to get people to engage in violence. And as we heard this weekend, apparently a guy that was giving out what were later used and are called dangerous weapons, Manuel himself had been working for the federal government, for the FBI, as he was handing out what they now charge were deadly weapons. So we've got a lot more investigating to do. The condition of solitary confinement has been so often struck down as inappropriate, and yet the DC jail has gotten away with it for such things as, how dare you demand to talk to your lawyer in person, because now we will have to put you in solitary confinement. We'll call it quarantine for 2 weeks. It's bad enough what they're suffering from, but to discourage the ability to talk to your attorney, and what we saw as we go in the building, they got a great facility there. The plexiglass, the phones on either side. You could see your attorney, and it wouldn't require anything after the visit other than wiping down the phone and the area where they were. And yet they have used this idea, if you're going to talk to your attorney, we're going to have to lock you up in solitary for 14 days. This is the kind of punishment that they have had meted out to them, and it really has to stop. And we know the U.S. Marshal, when they finally had enough, we didn't know that they were going. We didn't know immediately after they went. But they had gotten concerns about the facility. They go in, they do a search. Well, they're taken in to the area where the other prisoners were held, not the January 6th. And that gave them time to scrub off mold and try to clean up the area where the January 6th inmates were. And they did that. They had enough time to get some of the nastiest parts cleaned up, so that the U.S. Marshal held that the cleaner side of the jail was not adequate, and those 400 people needed to be shipped out to incarceration in Pennsylvania. And then by the time they get over to where the January 6 folks were, it was cleaner, and they let that go. Then after that, before we went over for an inspection, for a tour, they had done some painting and allowing them 2 hours outside their solitary confinement. One of the older gentlemen there, he's alleged to have had a gun, and I know the Attorney General of Garland was either being dishonest or he let us know.
I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, do we need more seats in the House of Commons?
I don't really think so. I'd rather see a stab at proportional representation. Yeah, I'm okay with that, I think.
No, there's enough seats. But first, it's been almost 2 years since the pandemic began. Canada and many other nations around the world had to alter their course and protect their citizens from COVID-19. But now, with a dangerous new variant spreading around the world, it seems the work to get COVID-19 behind us is far from done. So, We took to the streets to ask Canadians how they feel the federal government has managed COVID-19 up to now. Our question: are you satisfied with how the federal government has handled the pandemic?
Maybe to begin with, we understand that they were being cautious and careful and protecting us, and of course we appreciated that. But what we're not happy about is that they continue the COVID payments, and a lot of businesses are having a really hard time having people come back to work. And that's just creating such a huge debt for Canada. So we're very unhappy about that.
Yeah, I am. I think it was handled the best way it could be. It was a disaster to everyone, including the government. So I think they handled it well.
I would say more or less yes.
Tell me more about that. Why?
Well, I think they got the benefits in place early and I think fairly effectively. The problem is they left them on a little too long, in my opinion, because people are having trouble finding staff, and I think a lot of people would rather just stay home, collect the money, and go to work.
I would say probably not. I think there's just a lot of stuff they could have done differently, whether it be like shutting down schools. I think that's the biggest thing for me is I know like graduations and even just them being shut down for so long was not fun, and it was not helpful to our education. Like I'm in college right now, so it's okay, I can be in person, but I know a lot of university students who have to do online classes. It's a lot harder and it's a lot more of a struggle to get their work done.
Not really, no. In many ways on travel, quarantining if you're coming from outside Canada, and not too many exceptions, or not having people quarantine if they're coming from outside Canada. I think quarantine is necessary to slow the spread.
No, I'm not really very satisfied. I feel that they should have worked more closely with the medical experts and followed more of their advice before they made decisions.
I'm not really happy with it because it's, how can you be happy with something that just keeps on going and going and going and going, and it's going again, another virus, eh? Like, so is it just a scam or, what is it, eh?
I haven't lived through a pandemic before, so I don't have much to compare it to. I think they were responsive in terms of getting that CERB out, which I think is important. And I know people had some issues with it, but I think that was a good response and quick, and not without its hiccups, but you need to respond quickly when people are losing their livelihoods, I think.
I think, the federal government doing really well. Yeah, I agree. And then, I'm an immigrant. So if I would, like in China, we don't have any government support. So I came in the 1990s, so I know the difference. I like here being a Canadian. It's a free country. I got lots of freedom here. So I think the federal government doing good job for us, especially I have a small business here. So I have a lot of supplement support from the government, so I'm happy.
I was going through a really tough time because of job loss, like in the summer, and the CERB and all the checks, they really helped me out during that tough time. So, I mean, we're a pretty big country. There's a lot of people to take care of, and I'm not exactly, dissatisfied with how they handled it. I know it's hard, I know it's tough, and I know it took us, out of the blue. So, I don't really have a huge complaint, really. It's tough for everybody, and I feel like some people just need to understand that.
With respect to where I live in Nunavut, it's been excellent. We've had our vaccines have showed up on time, ahead of the rest of the country in many ways, and we've got a really good chief medical officer that's made sure that there's controls in place.
I think the CERB was partially successful at the beginning. I think everybody was I was pretty grateful that it was there for me to cushion out my expenses. But I think that the vaccine rollout was a disaster.
Generally, yes. Why? Because they supported the economy when it needed to be, and probably overdid it a little bit, but I think probably better to err on that side than too little. And I'd like them to pare back a bit faster now than they are, but generally I think they're okay.
Yes and no. I definitely benefited from
the CERB program, and it really helped me out at a time that I had lost my job because of COVID. At the same time, it feels so chaotic and like there's so many mixed feelings, and I've seen Trudeau kind of like flip on certain issues, like go between different stances. So I don't know. I definitely feel like it's a complicated situation, but I was really grateful for that program.
I wouldn't say I'm satisfied with any government, but with the federal government, I'm especially disappointed that more stricter federal mandates weren't put in place, and the onus was rather put on the provinces themselves. I would have rather seen the federal government take over the mandates.
Yeah, I don't really know much about that part of it, but I would say, it's probably standard. I'm not nitpicking them, at least. It's and we're all kind of self-isolating and everything anyway, so we're kind of responsible for ourselves too.
As far as I can tell, yes, I am. Coming from the States, it's a bit of a free-for-all between like where, you go from one state to another and there's different regulations. It feels a little bit more consistent across Canada, and there's some safety in knowing that people are at least consistently wearing masks here.
I think they did their best. No one's done this before. I think that Trudeau sort of kept a steady demeanor that was very calming. I'm proud of Canada.
Currently, there are 338 federal ridings across Canada, which of course means 338 seats in the House of Commons. But that number is set to rise to 342 seats in the not-too-distant future. Alberta will be getting 3 additional seats, British Columbia 1, and Ontario 1. Quebec will be losing a seat, the first time since 1966 that a province had one of its seats reduced. So, we took this question to Canadians. Do we need more seats in the House of Commons?
Good question. Once again, from an Inuit perspective, I think we need to have a bigger voice, and having more seats certainly would help. Right now, as you said, we only have 1 seat, but I'd like to see a larger Aboriginal representation in the House. So on the one hand, the answer is yes, but on the other hand, I want to make sure that it's in the right places. It's not just based on population sizes, but also based on certainly Indigenous rights are really important, and we need to kind of respect that. So I'd say yes, but I'd like to see more Indigenous representation.
Population is growing. Representation should grow as well. That makes sense to me, I guess.
So you think the seats should go up?
Yeah, I'm okay with that, I think. I don't have a strong opinion on it, but it doesn't seem like a huge change.
Logically, you don't, if you redistributed the ones that were there equally. You could do with 200 seats and then just spread them out equally. I guess the answer is no. To keep adding seats is just a waste of money.
I don't really think so. I think it just allows for government to get a bigger majority out of it, depending on how they divide up the standings itself, rather than anything else. There's always a chance that there could be gerrymandering involved. So, in reality, I'd like to see how this interim snap election has worked out for Trudeau, and then anything else before we decide, more seats.
Probably not. 300 people's a lot to organize in caucuses and whatnot. So
338 in total.
Yeah. So that's probably enough to represent 33 million or 35.
In the thousands. We had seen many small columns forming in various neighborhoods before converging here.
everyone. So, if you're watching this, if you're divorced, the good news is that you survived the divorce and probably just barely. But if this is your situation, the more treacherous news is that now you may have to survive co-parenting with a malignant narcissist. This series on co-parenting takes on what it's like to co-parent with the different narcissistic types. Not all the experiences are similar, but that's why I want to break this down for people who are going through co-parenting experiences, so you can sort of see the diversity of experiences that happen. And before I get into this video, please, if you find it helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Your feedback really helps this channel keep growing, and it helps me know that the kinds of things you're enjoying. We read the comments. We use them to inform future content. So again, thank you again for being such a wonderful audience and community. So of all of the co-parenting situations, this is the most stressful and harrowing for you and your children. Divorces from malignant narcissistic people can be terrifying, may require safety plans, and may put you in a financially and perhaps physically treacherous spot. It can feel impossible to believe that a person would actually put the parent of their children into an untenable position. But anyone who has ever survived a divorce from a malignant narcissist knows it can happen, and in the case of these divorces, it often does. So let's just have a sort of a brief review. Malignant narcissism is a type of narcissism that has all of the usual top notes of narcissism, but also blended in with sadism, paranoia, exploitativeness, a tremendous sense of control, and an uncanny ability to work the system or use the system to break another person. These are relationships and divorces that are characterized by menace, fear, stalking, custody and custody threats being used as a threat and a weapon, and a willingness by the malignant narcissist to either threaten divorce or, if it's happened, to waste money on legal fees just to ensure that you will not get the money. These divorces may be characterized by rather elaborate smear campaigns, and so too it might be the case if you're still in a relationship that terrible things are being said about you. The malignant narcissistic person will never have any problem speaking badly to you about you to your own children. The entire process can be quite confusing for you because in many ways it doesn't seem that they are actually interested in the hard work of parenting, and their custody threats appear to be more of a tool to punish the other parent rather than reflecting a meaningful interest in their own children. Malignant narcissistic people do not like to feel that they're being played, and they will try to ensure that they are, at least in their own minds, the winners in their divorces. For children, this can be a very painful divorce to have been a party to. They themselves may be quite frightened of their parent and may not even want to be alone with them. In fact, in people who have been married to malignant narcissists, more than a few will say, I held off as long as I could to get a divorce out of fear of my children having to spend time with this person alone, fear of how they would react if I wanted to leave. So fear, menace are always what's hanging out there in any kind of malignant narcissistic relationship. Now, you may not be getting a divorce, and many people actually don't leave these marriages. They don't leave malignant narcissistic relationships from a place of fear. Like I said, fear of this parent having unsupervised custody at times, fear of the reprisals, fear of vindictiveness. If you are staying in a malignant narcissistic relationship, it will be a life of eggshells, fear, malevolence, rage, and this is similar for the children in the environment who are likely experiencing all of the same things. Your children have likely been and will continue to be exposed to rage, manipulation, and fear as well. And you may even be witnessing the impacts of this on your children. Children who have malignant narcissistic co-parents or parents are often quite anxious, distractible, may have difficulty sleeping, may struggle in school, or try to be perfect in school, and as they get older, may be more at risk for attempting to regulate themselves through things like substance use, disordered eating, acting out behaviors, or mood and anxiety disorders. It is a horrible way to grow up. Now, I say this, and any time I make a video that addresses malignant narcissism, I make this comment as sort of a disclaimer on all the videos about malignant narcissism. This video is going to be no different. Malignant narcissism, of all of the narcissistic subtypes, is the subtype most likely to be associated with violence and aggression. If you are in an unsafe situation, there are links to domestic violence resources available in the video notes. This video is not intended to serve as guidance for a person in a situation in which there is imminent danger to you or to others in your home. In such circumstances, seeking out immediate help, emergency services, and resources is essential. This video is not meant to address those situations of acute danger or violence. When violence or imminent danger are not present and you are co-parenting with a malignant narcissist, what do you do? First, have a safety plan. And this may not just be because of physical danger, but the psychological abuse may also be taking a toll on all of it. A safety plan is something you can discuss and establish, perhaps in consultation with a therapist, a domestic violence social worker, or a counselor. A safety plan is different things to different people, and it can entail several things. But if you have children, and even if you don't, it has to account for shelter, money, school, of course. This may involve relying on friends, family members, but it's important to have this stuff laid out in advance if things escalate quickly. Second, have your children marry. A way to grow up. And as I've noted, children with malignantly narcissistic parents experience a whole host of psychiatric and psychological issues. While therapy may not be a tool you can use to fully prevent these outcomes or risks for your child, it becomes a really important sounding board for your child and a way to detect problems early and just give your child that sense of a safe space. Ensure your children see a therapist who has experience in understanding narcissism or high conflict personalities. And unfortunately, if you're still in a relationship with a malignant narcissist, you also have to be prepared for resistance from the other parent on you getting your child into therapy. Third is that therapy for you is absolutely essential as well. The stress, trauma, abuse, and anxiety that arise from a malignant narcissistic relationship will take a toll on your mental and physical health. A therapist who understands narcissistic abuse, or at the very least, understands domestic abuse, intimate partner violence, family violence, and trauma, is essential to survive a situation like this, and also helps you in being present for your children, which goes to point 4, is you got to be present with your children. Everyone who is in a family system like this is somewhat shattered because of chronically having present with your children at certain times. Away at least once a day. It may be their bedtime, it may be bath time, it may be maybe walking home from school, whatever it may be. Find those times to be that space of empathy and compassion and presence for your children. Even in the midst of the desolation of a malignant narcissistic home, even something like 15 minutes spent playing a board game can be soothing for a child. Fifth, do not let your children fall into the pattern of blaming themselves for their malignant, narcissistic parents' rages. Many times, children wonder that if they were just more quiet, more tidy, got better grades, were better at sports, were just better, that the malignant narcissistic parent would not rage as much. The child can exhaust themselves trying to figure out a way to keep it all calm so that they won't rage. The malignant narcissistic parent rages because it's what they do. They rage. When your child seems to be veering into a direction of self-blame or perfectionism, catch them and find a gentle way to let them know that the behavior of adults is never the responsibility of children. Number 6, document everything. If the time comes when the relationship ends, the more clear and substantiated the documentation you have or the recordings or whatever, the better the chance you may have around achieving a better outcome for your children in terms of custody, finances, all of that. Sadly, family courts have a long way to go in terms of understanding the dangerous impacts of these personality styles on children. But everything, you got to document it, from missed parent-teacher appointments to screaming at children to shows of aggression. Document it all. It will feel uncomfortable, but it may be necessary. It doesn't feel good to have to replay it all while you document it. You're not going to be able to remember it all, so it's important you get it down. Number 7, please don't blame yourself for staying. Many, many people in relationships with malignant narcissists struggle with staying in toxic relationships and feel ashamed that they are. But many people just do it so they can be with their children 7 days a week. Our systems aren't designed to protect children. And so you may stay in a bad situation because you believe it will be better for your children if you're always with them. People will often feel they are modeling something bad for their children if they stay. Sadly, that horse is out of the barn. The malignant narcissistic parent is modeling enough bad stuff. You staying may just be a way for you, it depends on your circumstance, but maybe a way that you feel helps you manage a bad situation the best you can. No one else knows that as well as you do, but please don't blame yourself if you do. Number 8, don't tell the children what a bad person the malignant narcissistic parent is. I recognize that this is not easy, and at times you will literally have to sit on your hands and clench your jaw to not say something. Despite the fact that the malignant narcissistic co-parent is talking badly about you and saying and doing terrible things, you do not want to play their dirty ground game. Your children need to believe that someone in this mess is a safe person with good boundaries who isn't burdening them with things that they can't fix and they don't understand. Let that be you. In the vast majority of cases, your kids are going to figure out that their malignant narcissistic parent is not good for them in time. In the interim, let it not be that you're the messenger. It's just not good for them. But please, at this point, I'd love for you to drop a comment. Is there something else that has helped you while you've been co-parenting with a malignant narcissist? Leave a comment below, because I know my list isn't exhaustive and it would help everyone who's watching this. Yep. I'm gonna fucking kill somebody. You're fucking kidding.
The G7 has warned Russia of massive consequences if it launches an attack on Ukraine. Joining us now to discuss this is the political analyst and professor at Curtin University, Joe Siracusa. Joe, let's get your thoughts on this. What's he playing at here, Putin? Is it about NATO? Is it about a land grab? Is it about sending a message? What's going on?
Good morning, Pete. Well, it's unfinished business as far as he's concerned. Look, on Tuesday, President Biden and President Putin went eyeball to eyeball over Ukraine, and President Biden blinked. At the end of that interview, Putin was convinced that he could do what he wanted, and the president made it very clear for the first time I've ever heard that military force was not on the table. He was threatening Putin with other things. Putin, as I say, has unfinished business there. He wants, he's a revanchist. He wants Ukraine back in what some kind of Russian empire, and wants to protect the Russian-speaking people there and all the rest of it. Of course, what he wants is he wants neutralization of NATO. He wants the G7 to guarantee that. And of course, everybody's threatening him with pipelines and banking bans and things like that. Who could care less about this? Look, Pete, before that phone call, before the G7 met this week, chances of war in Ukraine were about 50-50. Today, they're about 60%. So I think we're looking at a major war, and I think we're going to have to lay the blame here at the president's feet. But the G7 did something else, too. That is, with France has made it very clear to President Biden that France and the European countries are not going to be following the so-called diplomatic boycott. This is Macron's first-hand chance to stick it to the Americans, the British, the Australians. He said the boycott was insignificant and wouldn't do a damn thing. So what he signaled to the Chinese is that the French are going their own way on this one. So all these efforts to join. Go ahead.
Well, just a couple of points on Russia. I mean, does Putin have some legitimate concerns here? I mean, there's more countries in the eastern part of Europe turn their attention to NATO. Is he within his rights to get concerned about that?
Oh, absolutely. Look, there was a terrible mistake done after the Cold War, which ended on Christmas Day of 1990. That was the encroachment of NATO on Russia's borders. Every nation that joined the European Union became a member of NATO automatically by frequent flyer points. And pretty soon we got up to Ukraine, the last country next to Russia. And so I think Russia has very legitimate concerns. As I like to point out that the Americans found Russian battalions on the boundary of Canada across Niagara Falls or across Belfast. We have a war in 10 minutes. So, there are legitimate concerns here. And of course, Ukraine is angling for membership in the EU when he wants to get into NATO. I'm afraid that's not going to happen.
And just quickly too, do you reckon it would be an option to switch the gas off? That wouldn't be, would it?
To switch the gas off? Well, look, that would be a very bad idea for this reason. Number one, there'd be a lot of cold people in Europe this winter. And number two, we would drive Russia right into the arms of China, who will provide them with alternative everything. Sure. So I think that's a very bad idea. But, Putin's got a free hand. He's got the green light to do what he wants to do. And so he probably will. As I say, the president's had a very bad week in Europe.
Joe, we'll leave it there. Yeah, no, it was someone who mentioned that the other day. I was reading about turning the gas off, and I thought, oh, well, that would be a big call, but and also unlikely. But anyway, Joe, good to chat as always. We'll talk to you soon.
And India, we know, has many partners in geopolitics. Nowadays, there's also talk of alliances. But who does India count as its friend? It's a short list, and Russia is right on top. The relationship has ticked every box. Historical ties, check. Defense exchanges, check. Personal chemistry between the leaders, check. Cultural ties, check. As Prime Minister Modi said at the Eastern Economic Forum, this relationship is time-tested. It has remained stable through 7 decades. Stable, but not unchanged. During the Soviet days, the equation was quite different. The USSR was the all-conquering superpower. India was the young, inexperienced democracy. India needed the Soviet Union for diplomatic clout, for weapons, for space science. It was clear who dictated this relationship. Cut to 2021 and things have changed. India has more partners than rivals. India is a sure-footed democracy, also the fastest growing emerging economy with an impressive military. The last couple of decades have been good for India. For Russia, not so much. Just look at the numbers. In 2004, Russia's GDP was growing at 7.18%. In 2020, it was minus 2.95%. That's a big drop in less than 20 years. Today, Russia's economy is ranked 11th in the world. India ranked 6th. Same story with hard power. Russian military is not the Soviet military. The Americans now consider Russia to be a disruptor, not a systemic threat like China. So how does Moscow continue to dominate public discourse? Thanks to this man, Russian President Vladimir Putin. He's a wily operator. He knows exactly which buttons to push. Take Syria, for instance. The Russian intervention changed the tide of the war in Syria, and Vladimir Putin now has a forever friend in West Asia. He's doing something similar with India. There is no war here. But these are two countries on opposite trajectories. India is a rising global power and Russia is a waning regional power. Clearly, Moscow needs New Delhi more and not the other way around. This visit is an indication of that significance. Putin wants to charm India. Just think about it. India is closer than ever to the United States, Russia's biggest rival. The Quad is zoning in on China, Russia's prospective ally. And yet Russia is investing in India. And I'm not talking about the defense deals or the arms manufacturing. I'm talking about political investments, the ones that Putin is making. President Putin did not attend the G20 summit earlier this year. He did not attend the COP26 either. But in the middle of a massive standoff in Ukraine, he lands in India. Russia is at loggerheads with Europe over gas. Russia is battling its worst COVID wave, 75,000 deaths in October. Russia has amassed 100,000 soldiers on its border with Ukraine and is exchanging threats with the US. It is a critical time for President Vladimir Putin, and yet he flies down to India. Like I said, the sum of this visit is bigger than its parts, bigger than its defense deals too. And here too the equation has changed. In the area of defense. Since 2018, India and Russia have signed military deals worth $15 billion. India is Russia's biggest defense market, always has been. But at the same time, New Delhi is diversifying. It is looking at new options. Why is India doing that? It's always better to hedge your bets. For starters, dealing with Russia could mean US sanctions too. It may not happen this time with the S-400, but the threat remains. Remember, the US has sanctioned Turkey for buying Russian weapons, and Turkey is a NATO ally. Secondly, India sees itself as an arms maker in the long run, a self-reliant producer, not a serial buyer. And again, that's bad news for Russia. The bottom line is this: Russia needs the Indian arms market. In the last century, India, despite its policy of non-alignment, was guided by Soviet diplomatic clout. Today, an increasingly isolated Russia needs India's endorsement. And for that, Putin is making some big concessions. On China, for instance, Russia's weapons will balance things along the line of actual control, the border between India and China. China has already deployed the S-400 missiles near Ladakh. By next year, India will have the same missiles. There is a delicate power play unfolding here. Right now, Russia and China are partners, not friends. Partners. What unites them is hatred for the United States, and such relationships do not last. Let me tell you about the big differences. Central Asia is one. China wants to expand its Belt and Road into Central Asia, but this has always been Russia's backyard. President Putin will not be happy about the Chinese interference. He sees Beijing as a tool to counter America, nothing more. But today's China sees itself as the center of the world. It has its set of issues with Russia. The Russia-China partnership does not hurt India yet. As long as Russia does not take sides in the conflict with China, this equation works for India. It's like getting the best of both the worlds. How many countries can claim to have a strategic partnership with both Russia and the US? Only one, India. You may think it's a dangerous tightrope to walk, but it's actually a reflection of India's significance. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move. Good evening.
The talk show is The View, now streaming on ABC News Live.
It was a scary time. So we need to prepare to fight fire with fire.
The head of Canada's largest union, Unifor, has been selected to lead a new group advising Ontario's government on how to fight U.S. protectionism. This week, the province announced the creation of the Premier's Council on U.S. Trade and Industry Competitiveness. We spoke with Jerry Diaz about what this new role means for us. He warned that tax credits being considered in the U.S. threaten to undermine efforts to produce electric vehicles in Canada.
So what do we do about it?
Can you kind of take us through what's being proposed in the U.S. and how and why it would have the impact here in Ontario?
Well, for example, they're proposing a Straight Buy America provision for in the auto industry, for example, that will give $12,500 rebates on American assembled vehicles. Well, it sounds great in theory because we are very much understanding that government should put their own citizens to work. But the auto industry is so complex, it's so different. It's as if the border doesn't exist. So I don't know how the U.S. would be able to determine what vehicles are built with majority U.S. parts. Let me give you an example. The minivan is assembled by Unifor members in Canada, but all the major components come from the United States.
We have trade agreements, the Auto Pact, NAFTA, more recently USMCA. What rights have we negotiated under those agreements that you're going to be looking to?
So what the U.S. is doing right now, I would argue violates the new NAFTA. We can take them on within the WTO. If I take a look at the softwood lumber dispute that we've got going on right now, I mean, every time we go to the WTO, when they implement protectionist tariffs against us, we win. But it doesn't matter. They proceed anyway.
Now, there's always a little bit of a tussle over the good manufacturing jobs, the auto jobs. Am I getting a sense that this is very different from, disputes in the past?
Well, it is because they're looking to cherry pick the relationship.
If the relationship doesn't come through and the U.S. moves forward in a way that is going to be detrimental to Ontario, do you feel confident that we are capable of packing that return punch, if you will, that would make that unappealing for them?
It would be very difficult for the United States to build electric vehicles without our raw materials.
We're seeing a few other economic factors crop up as well over the past year. We've got the supply chain, the inflation. Are these things that factor in at the same time?
Well, it's huge. I mean, the auto industry is running at a fraction of its normal capacity because of the microchip shortages. Because, frankly, the industry is fully dependent on facilities in Taiwan and Korea.
American Congress is also debating measures that could threaten other Ontario industries like lumber, steel, and agriculture. In Oakville, David Zura, City News.
In America, we tend to listen with rapt attention to the wisdom of people who have succeeded in the private sector. If they've made billions, we think surely they must have profound insights into the world. And when the person speaking is obviously brilliant, this adds to our veneration. So when somebody as staggeringly rich and staggeringly intelligent as Elon Musk talks, people listen. Alas, what came out of Musk's mouth this week was a series of self-serving and ill-informed comments about President Biden's spending plans. Musk advised that it would be better if the bill doesn't pass because our spending is so far in excess of revenue, it's insane. Seemingly selfless, he explained that he didn't want any subsidies himself or his flagship company, Tesla, neither for charging stations nor for cars.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies.
Some of this might be sour grapes. Tesla actually outgrew the federal government's tax credit on electric vehicles a long time ago. The federal government provides a $7,500 tax credit for electric vehicles, but they expire once the manufacturer has sold 200,000 of them, a mark Tesla crossed in 2018. In addition, the Biden bill adds $4,500 more in credits per car if the manufacturer uses unionized labor, and Tesla does not. As for charging stations, one of Tesla's key advantages is that it already owns and operates thousands of them. Federal subsidies in the infrastructure bill that recently passed would simply erode that advantage by building new ones for all electric cars. It is bizarre and ironic that Elon Musk should be the tech billionaire who so opposes government spending. Three of Musk's endeavors, Tesla, SpaceX, and Solar City, would probably not even exist if not for federal support. Tesla owners, like me by the way, have for many years received generous tax credits and incentives from the federal and many state governments. And in 2010, after a global recession, when Tesla was a fraction of the size it is now, the company got a $465 million loan from the Department of Energy, which gave it a desperately needed shot in the arm. The state of Nevada gave Tesla a $1.25 billion tax incentive package to build its battery factory there. Solar City has benefited from all kinds of subsidies and tax credits that incentivize the production and installation of solar panels. And liftoff. And SpaceX's largest customers, of course, are federal government agencies, from NASA to the Department of Defense. Musk defends himself by saying he's in favor of getting rid of all subsidies because he wants those for oil and gas eliminated as well. Oil and gas subsidies should be pared back, but there really aren't as many as people seem to think. A 2018 study by the Energy Information Administration found that in fiscal year 2016, the renewable energy industry received almost half of all federal energy subsidies while generating just only 1/8 of the energy produced in the United States. This is as it should be. Green energy is the future, after all. But let's be clear. If all subsidies were eliminated, it is green energy that would suffer the most. Musk's comments on the budget were also disappointing. They seem to parrot conventional wisdom about budget deficits that has not been vindicated by evidence. Over the past 30 years, governments like America and Japan have been able to run massive deficits, and yet interest rates have overall trended way down.
Jack? What's the matter?
The province announced last week that limited quantities of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine will be available to Ontarians, but booking an appointment for it is proving to be difficult. Toronto's Associate Medical Officer of Health says there's simply not enough supply for everyone who wants it, and explains the criteria that Toronto Public Health will use to determine who gets a J&J shot.
There's going to be more information coming on this. There were a very small number of J&J doses that were received, very small. So probably not enough for everyone who wants one. And so really what is required is those who really have a contraindication to getting a messenger RNA vaccine, that they cannot get that vaccine. This is the only other vaccine that's available for them. They will be given first dibs. And so really what you need to do is to see your doctor to see if you qualify in that way. Again, we are working on figuring out the exact criteria based on the number of doses, and so hope to be able to provide some more information. But because there was such a small number of doses, it's not the kind of thing that we'll be able to open up a clinic and say anyone who wants this vaccine to come. Now, I think it's important to know that the J&J is a good alternative for those who can't get a messenger RNA vaccine. But I think the studies are quite clear that the J&J, AstraZeneca, these are viral vector vaccines, and they are less effective compared to our messenger RNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna. And so I would still argue that is the messenger RNA vaccines are a better choice for a lot of different reasons. So is there going to be sort of an eligibility list that we can expect from Toronto Public Health? Exactly, yes. So if you live in Toronto, and it will be based on an eligibility that I know my colleagues are working on very, very closely. If you only get 50 doses, for example, of the vaccine, and the demand is higher than that, you really have to have an eligibility list.
Now, the doctor also tells me that even though the J&J shot is a single-dose vaccine, it is likely that a booster dose will be recommended in the future. For more answers from this Q&A and to submit your questions for our next one, you can go to our website, citynews.ca. For City News, I'm Dilshad. Such stupid shit. Okay.
Smoke-free. A diversified, multicultural, postmodern deconstruction is politically, anatomically, and ecologically incorrect. I've been uplinked and downloaded, I've been inputted and outsourced. I know the upside of downsizing, I know the downside of upgrading. I'm a high-tech lowlife, a cutting-edge, state-of-the-art, bi-coastal multitasker, and I can give you a gigabyte in a nanosecond. I'm new wave, but I'm old school, and my inner child is outward bound. I'm a hot-wired, heat-seeking, warm-hearted, cool customer, voice-activated and biodegradable. I interface with database, but database is in cyberspace, so I'm interactive, I'm hyperactive, and from time to time, I'm radioactive. Behind the eight ball, ahead of the curve, riding the wave, dodging the bullet, pushing the envelope. I'm on point, on task, on message, and off drugs. I got no need for coke and speed. I got no urge to binge and purge. I'm in the moment, on the edge, over the top, but under the radar. A high-concept, low-profile, medium-range ballistic missionary. A streetwise smart bomb. A Top Gun bottom feeder. I wear...
Good evening. Good to have you with us. We're always glad to know that there are some people who want to be instructed. People who don't like the idea of believing that the policemen are the protector of the people, and firemen by the same token. Although I will grant you, firemen and policemen have certain duties which are at times very helpful to the average citizen. But I'm not speaking of these oddball times. After all, how many times in your life have you ever been held up on the streets? How many times have you been stopped in your car by a highwayman? How many times can you say that you have actually been in need of a policeman? Very few, I offer, and I think you will concur. And we are entitled, I think, to a little explanation as to how these people spend their days. Now, when was the last time you looked at a cop and you looked them from head to toe and you thought, geez, I'm in better shape if I try to protect myself? let us face it, there are a lot of cops with completely gray heads, guys who are just about 5 or 3 or 2 years away from their pensions, and they can do nothing. If, as they say in the comic books, quote, a desperado, unquote, was to confront them, they'd shit in their pants and probably get their gray head shot off. I mean, we can do without this thing. If we're going to have a police force, let us live up to the word police. To police means to keep in order, to protect. There are old, gray-looking bastards, guys that couldn't even protect themselves, much less you and me, patrolling the streets under the pretense of being policemen. This is shameful, really. Now, frankly, I could care less about the police department itself, but I just don't like the fact that we are being fooled. We are supposed to believe that the police department is here to protect us. These guys are pretty stupid. Firemen are no better than cops. Next time you go to a fire, don't watch the fireman who is carrying the hose or swinging the axe. Don't watch those guys. Those guys obviously have things to do. Keep your eye on the fireman that doesn't seem to have too much to do, because the odds are, after that guy who has not too much to do has been in your parlor 20 minutes, he's got half of the small articles in your parlor in his pocket. That's right. Firemen are pretty close to being as dishonest as the average dirty goddamn cop. You're dirty, stupid policeman that can't even work in the A&P. He's got to be a cop. You know what I mean? Don't trust them. Well, first of all, we all know from birth that we don't trust cops. And we all know some of the tricks of policemen. We all know how they will pull their badge on you and give you a bad time. We know that cops are basically full of shit, because you can tempt and taunt the average cop and he'll give up. Okay? We know this. Okay. You can never expect to get a fair shake from anything that is involved with government. There is nobody who has ever run a government who has ever been fair and righteous. Don't ever leave yourself open to these people, because they're dirty. That's a funny word, dirty. That's very basic. But they are. They're dirty, and they're no goddamn good. In America, people answer to each other. There are very few individuals left in America. I happen to believe that I am one of them. You may think you are one of them. An individual is a person who thinks and acts for himself. Now, there are a lot of people who think for themselves. A lot of people who think for themselves. Boy, they're great. They watch Marlboro commercials or Chesterfield or something, and they say, boy, I'm a man, I think for myself. But thinking for yourself doesn't make you an individual. No. No, sir. In order to be an individual, you must not only think for yourself, you must plan for yourself. And you must plan ahead, and you must live up to these plans. You must know exactly what you want to do.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome George Carlin?
Last 10, 15 years, rats and squealers and snitches, people spying on each other, turning each other in, call them the tipster hotline. If you see a crime, call the tipster hotline. Let me tell you something, it's not the tipster hotline, it's the rats and squealers hotline. But if they called it that, you know how many people would use it? Yeah, lots of them. Because people have no principles anymore. We're living in a nation of dual vision. How am I driving? Call 1-800 and squeal on the truck driver. Sounds like a
a small thing, but it's not. It's an open invitation to be a rat. And that's what people are turning into. They cooperate with prosecutors, for Christ's sake. Prosecutors, the worst kind of dishonest swine ever to crawl out of the devil's asshole. Just the worst fucking humans. And people make deals with them. They plea bargain. They betray their friends just to stay out of jail. That's what happened to those poor guys in the mafia. They sold each other out. Sure, when I was a kid, we looked up to the mafia. We admired and respected those guys because they had a code of silence. No one talked. Now they squeal on each other, make a book deal, buy a fake mustache in Pocatello, Idaho. You know something? They deserve fucking Pocatello, Idaho. And speaking of places where people blow cows, let me ask you a question. I got a question. You remember those militia assholes? You remember those patriotic nitwits said they didn't recognize the authority of the federal government? They had a flag with a serpent on it said, "Don't tread on me." Well, the flag should have said, "Don't squeal on me," because first chance they got, two of them testified for the government against their friends just to stay out of jail. Never mind the serpent. You know what that flag should have had on it? A rat. A nice big brown diseased sewer rat fucking the serpent in the ass. Both of them wearing camouflage fatigues. We got no heroes anymore in this country. There's no heroes. Timothy Leary turned in people to the FBI. Elvis Presley was a snitch for the DEA. The only hero I've seen recently was Susan McDougal. She told Ken Starr to go get fucked, and she went to jail for 2 years for it. That's what I call being a hero. And by the way, Clinton must have thrown her a pretty good hump to get loyalty like that. Don't you think so? Good for her. Good for her. And good for him. I'm glad he got away with everything he got away with. And the worst part of this snitch shit is these people who squeal on their families. You know, parents spying on their kids, searching their rooms for drugs, and the kids are no better. Did you ever read about one of these dumbass kids turns his parents in for having some drugs in the house? Shit, how stupid can you get? You don't turn in the people who are buying the food, asshole. Think it through. Squealing on your family. Fyodor Kaczynski, the Unabomber, one of my personal heroes, by the way. You bet your ass. He was turned in by his own brother. You don't do that. You don't turn in your brother or your parents or your kids, no matter what they're doing, even if they're selling drugs and killing people. Whatever happened to family values? In fact, you should never cooperate with the police ever at any time for any reason. Fuck the police. Fuck the police. Let them solve some crimes on their own. They rely too much on jailhouse snitches, unsolved mysteries, and America's Most Wanted to get other people to solve their crimes. They turn good citizens into vigilantes and bounty hunters, lower than a snake's ball bag. The mafia knew how to handle squealers in the old days. When I was a kid, there was a famous bank robber by the name of Willie Sutton. Everybody loved Willie. He was running from the police, you know, and one day he's riding the subway in New York City, and a private citizen, some civic-minded prick named Arnold Schuster, spotted Willie and turned him into the police. But Albert Anastasia, a mafia boss, read about it in the newspapers, and he had Arnold Schuster killed, which is just what the yellow rat motherfucker deserved. You don't help the police. When I was a kid and we went to the movies, we rooted against the police. Against the police and for the crooks. And I still do. I love the crooks. I don't give a shit if they come to my house and kill my entire family. I'm on their side. I'd rather spend 16 hours stuck in an elevator with a couple of crooks than even say hello to a fucking policeman. You don't help the police. They're not on your side. Don't you understand this shit yet? They work for the state. They'll plant fake evidence. They'll put a loaded gun in the hands of an unarmed man they shot to death. They harass minorities. They brutalize people. They deny people their rights, and they lie about it all in court all the time. They perjure themselves routinely. But they don't squeal on each other. They're not rats. So take a page from their book, but never ever help them. And above all, don't plea bargain by turning in a friend. Tell you what, some of you religious people out here, you religious folks, on Judgment Day, when you see God, ask him if you can plea bargain. Ask him if you turn in your family, will he let you into heaven? You know what he'll say? He'll say, go to hell. He'll say, go to hell, you fucking squealing prick. Because even God hates a rat. You know what Jesus should have done? He should have beat the shit out of Judas. Just grab him by the beard and beat the shit out of him. Right in front of the other apostles. Make an example out of him. You fucking squealing prick, Judas, you cocksucker. You realize I could turn you into a fucking pillar of salt if I want? Turn you into a fucking monkey. How is I can be a fucking monkey? Where's the money? Where's the fucking $30? Give me the $30. I'm fucking buying beer for the rest of these guys. Because they didn't fucking rat on me, you prick. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that. You know why? You know why he didn't do that? Because he believed in all this goofy love bullshit. But you notice something else. He did not plea bargain with the Romans. And he didn't squeal on the apostles, you know? He kept his big fucking yap shut, and he took what was coming to him. We can all learn something from Jesus, even if it's not what we're expecting. Thank you. I appreciate that, folks. Excuse my allergy, but it's a better reason for blowing my nose on stage than I used to have. And a lot less expensive. Well, after a while, you do kind of grow up, you know? You realize that, well, a couple of lines of cocaine make you feel like a new man. Problem is, first thing the new man wants, a couple of lines of cocaine. So that's like looking in the barbershop mirror. Now, here's something that bothers me. Surprise. When I'm flying first class and some guy from Coach comes up and takes his shit in our bathroom, you know? Don't you hate that? I said, get back to your filthy Coach toilet with the tampon sticking out of the commode. Don't be coming up here and trying to upgrade your feces. Your super saver feces. Well, I think most people know by now, caviar feces smell much nicer than bologna sandwich feces. It's unfortunate, you don't like to tell people the truth. You don't want to point out class distinctions, but it's true. It's a function of socioeconomics. It's called the fecal differential. It has to do with diet as it relates to income. The lower the income, the worse the diet, the more disgusting the feces. And the same thing applies to farts. And the worst farts of all, the most horrendous farts in the whole travel experience can be found in the economy section of any plane coming in from the third world. It is fucking torture back there, folks. Underdeveloped country farts. Those people have farts that could kill cancer. The kind of fart that comes in handy if you have something that needs welding. The kind of fart that if you let one go at home, 30 minutes later, your plants are all yellow. The kind of fart that after 2 or 3 days, you realize there are no more birds in your neighborhood. A fart that would eat the stitching out of Levi's. Can I get away with one more fart joke here? The kind of fart whereby the Centers for Disease Control declares your pants a level 5 biohazard. What happens is, in these third world flights, in the economy section, about an hour after the meal service, they quite often have these life-threatening fart emergencies. The FAA calls them TFIs, toxic flatulence incidents. The airlines call them code browns. Just as a hospital has a code blue, airlines have code brown, code brown. If you ever hear that, do not inhale. You are in a code brown. And the worst place to be is in the last 3 rows. Because what happens is these planes get flying so fast that all the most vicious, lethal, volatile, flammable, unstable farts get pushed toward the back of the airplane where they begin to build up pressure. And they build and they build and they build until they reach critical fart density, CFD. And they continue to build throughout the flight until finally some kid turns on a game board and boom. The whole back end of the plane blows off. And you know who gets blamed? Osama bin Laden. Terrorists get blamed for these explosions that are nothing more than cabbage fart detonations. And the FBI doesn't know. FBI doesn't know what to do. They're looking for explosives. They should be looking for minute traces of rice and bok choy. These are the kind of thoughts that kept me out of the really good schools. And prevented me from moving swiftly up the corporate ladder. Because I was always complaining about something, you know? Always finding fault. You know something I'm getting tired of? Songs. There's too many fucking songs. That's all you ever hear, songs. You know how many songs there are? Okay, Every year, 25,000 CDs come out, okay? 25,000. So even if you throw out half the titles and say they're old songs being re-recorded, you stay very conservative. You say, well, 8 songs to a CD, that's still 100,000 songs every year. Every year. And that's just this country. There's about 185 other countries out there, all of them pumping out songs. Probably not a lot of snappy tunes coming out of Rwanda these days, but some, there's got to be some. I'm telling you, it adds up. I'll bet you anything that if you counted every song ever written in the history of the world, in every culture since the beginning of time, by now, there's got to be 10 million songs. 10 million songs. They're not enough. Don't we have enough fucking songs for you people? You're telling me you're standing in the shower and with 10 million songs out there, you can't think of something to sing? You gotta have a new song? And they're all love songs. That's all you ever hear is a fucking love song. Can't somebody write a song about something else? Everything's a broken heart, broken heart, broken heart. Fuck that. What about a fractured cheekbone? How about a punctured lung? Huh? Would you like to see some good-looking chick with long hair and big tits stand up on stage singing about a punctured lung? Would sure make my fucking weekend. No one is writing these songs. How about a song about a fire in a nursing home? Huh? All right, a daycare center. Okay, a church. A crowded church. How about a song about a guy who gets his legs caught in a wood chipping machine? Here's a nice song. Family of 4 comes home from vacation at Disney World and finds 27 bodies decomposing in the living room. And they all have on Santa Claus suits. I'm telling you, we're passing up a lot of really good topics that would make terrific fucking songs. Like cancer. I know it's touchy. Fuck you. Cancer would make a really great song. Shit, everybody's got cancer. Nobody's singing about it. Here is a market niche being deliberately overlooked. And by the way, tuberculosis is coming back too. Here's another musical opportunity. Wouldn't you like to hear a song with a whole lot of coughing in it? You never hear these kind of songs. You never hear that. Everything's a love song. It's always emotional pain. You know, you know something? The last thing I'm interested in is someone else's emotional pain. Don't be singing about your pain. Unless it's cancer pain. You could do a whole CD. First cut is cancer. Second cut, tuberculosis. 3.5 minutes, solid coughing. Starts out slow. With the introduction to the song, guy's just clearing his throat. Then you go to the first verse. Kind of a dry cough, non-productive. You get in the second verse, the song begins to build. Now you're in the chorus, and the guy's coughing louder and louder and harder and harder, and he's choking and gasping and wheezing and panting, and you can hear the fluids in his lungs, and he's doubled over, and he's running out of breath, and finally gets into one big, huge, uncontrollable spasmodic coughing fit, and he gags and pukes all over the microphone. That would be the climax to the song. And maybe you could make it interactive with a CD-ROM, and the guy could puke right into your living room. Huh? Yeah, you probably need special speakers for that. I don't know, I'm not into the technical stuff. I'm more of an idea man. I'm a concept guy. You know what I am? I'm a visionary. I'm a fucking visionary. I'm always thinking about something, always fucking thinking, especially when I'm alone, you know? Now you're probably saying to yourselves, what the fuck does this guy think about when he's alone? If this is the shit he's willing to talk about in public, what kind of garbage floats through his head when he's home? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's a fair question. I'll tell you what I think about. You know what I think about when I'm alone? The first enema. Huh? Yeah. I don't think about it all the time, you know. But a lot. Maybe 30, 40 times a day. That's not too much, is it? I don't dwell on it. It's just a quick thought. But let me ask you this. Did you ever think about that? Did you ever think about the first enema? No. You know why? No vision. No fucking vision. Me, I'm a visionary. I'm always thinking about something, you know. That's when I thought about the first enema. Here's how it happened. Me and my friend were giving each other an enemy, you know? What? He's my friend. Leon. Hey, what good is a friend that can't give you an occasional enema, huh? So me and Leon are giving each other an enema this day. And at this particular point, it was my turn. So I was kind of relaxed, you know. I was draped over the end of the living room couch there. And I'm reading the food section of the newspaper. Always looking for a good veal recipe, you know? I'm looking through there, and we're talking back and forth. Me and Leon, we're talking about hockey. We're talking about the NASDAQ. We're talking about how sometimes if you rub your eyes real hard, you can see kind of a checkerboard pattern, you know? And suddenly, out of the blue, I turned to Leon. Well, I couldn't turn all the way around. But over my shoulder, I says, "Hey, Leon, I wonder whoever came up with the first enema." Well, he flipped. He had never thought of such a thing. He practically dropped the equipment he was holding. And that thing is heavy. It's a fire hose. Number 12 with a zoom nozzle. But it leaves you feeling really refreshed. So we started talking about the first enema. Because when you think about it, there had to be a first enema. There had to be a first one. Everything has to happen once for the first time. Some guy, just sitting there had to think of the enema. And I'm sure it was a guy. This does not sound like a lady's thought. Some guy. He's all long time ago, this guy. Probably making spear tips or some shit. Sitting there carving a fertility fetish for his girlfriend, something like that. Suddenly he thinks to himself, "You know something? I think it would be a really great idea if I would squirt a whole bunch of water up my ass. And then just let it all run out. I'll bet I would feel a whole lot better if I did that." And then, after he thought of it, dig this. After he thought of it, he had to explain it to the other people. And test it. Something like that, you're going to want to test it. You probably want to test it on someone else. I'm sure you wouldn't try it on yourself. But wouldn't you have to be subtle? Don't you think you need kind of a subtle approach? "Hey, Joey, turn around. I got a surprise for you." Oh, turn around. Whoops, I dropped my rock. Would you pick it up for me, please? Oh, thank you. Hold still. Okay, relax. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath, Joey. Through your mouth, please. No, through your mouth, Joey, please. These are new shoes. Okay, relaxed. It's a new thing, Joey. It's called the enema. Yeah, I thought of today during lunch. That's right, I had the veal. Tell the truth, Joey. Did you like it a little bit, huh? Yeah, I kind of got a kick out of it myself. You want to go again? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't want to. That was pineapple juice. And sand. Joey, guess what? We're engaged. I'm only kidding you. Look, I gotta go home and wash off my legs. I'll see you at the dance. Okay? Some guy had to think of it. How? Why? Why would it even enter your fucking mind? I'll tell you what. I'll tell you, because the guy was thinking big. The guy was a visionary. Probably made a fortune. It's a big business now. Colonic irrigation, they call it. Big in California. Everybody in that state squirting something up somebody's ass. And getting paid for it. You know what I'm waiting for? Enemas online. Electronic digital enemas. They'll have it. You watch. Some guy's home tonight. e.nomad.com/pineapple juice. Some visionaries home tonight trying to get a mouse in his ass. Probably a Macintosh guy, you know. We're always ahead of the curve. Good ideas, good fucking ideas. As usual tonight, I've been doing a lot of complaining, a lot of criticizing, and people seem to like that. I thought maybe by now, you might be ready to hear about something I like. Would you want me to tell you about something I really, really like? Huh? Fatal disasters. Big fatal disasters with lots of dead people. Because I kind of like it when a lot of people die. Some people like macrame, some people like doing the mambo. Me, I like a nice train wreck. Fire in a paint factory, you know, ship going down, plane blowing up, 500 guys trapped in a mine with no air, no water, and one little box of Junior Mints. I like that. It's exciting. To me, anything that kills a lot of people is exciting. You know the best thing I can hear on television? We interrupt this program. You know the worst thing I can hear? No one was hurt. Ah, shit, no one was hurt. I get depressed, you know, because I'm always rooting for a really high death toll. That's why I like the natural disasters, the big natural disasters that no one can control. Tornado, hurricane, earthquake. Tornadoes are great because there's hardly any warning, you know, so you can get in there and fucking nail some people in their sleep. Another nice thing about a tornado, no one can find their cat, which I think is fucking interesting.
Then you got a hurricane. Hurricane is completely different because there's a lot of warning. So unfortunately, you don't get the really nice high fatality numbers. But on the bright side, it lasts a longer time and you do get widespread property damage, which is always a good thing. Another nice thing about a hurricane, sometimes it'll change direction, you know? They come in, they hit one city, boom, hit a fucking city. Then they lose strength and you get discouraged. So they go back out over the ocean, pick up strength, they come back, boom, nail another fucking city. So it's kind of like two for the price of one. Weather-wise, it's a good value.